Yemen, a small country on the Arabian Peninsula, has become the site of grievous civilian suffering amid an intractable civil war. The war has caused more than 200,000 deaths, mostly from indirect causes such as a lack of food and health services. Humanitarian groups warn that Yemen is being starved and that famine is imminent, mostly because of man-made causes and economic disruptions. For instance, the Saudi-led coalition's prolonged blockade of Yemen has led to an increase in food prices. Though food is available, many cannot afford it, as the local currency is depreciating and an estimated 500,000 public servants, including doctors and teachers, have not received a salary in 4 years. But one of the biggest causes of hunger often goes unmentioned: a leafy plant called khat. Khat, also known as Catha edulis, or khat, is a flowering evergreen shrub native to East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. The plant contains 2 alkaloids, cathinone and catechine, which act as stimulants. Khat is popular in many countries of the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa, but in Yemen it's a full-blown national addiction. What in decades past was an occasional indulgence for the country's rich has become, one study says, a near-daily habit for a staggering up to 90% of the population, including men, women and children as young as 12. Users simply chew the green khat leaves in fresh condition, keeping a ball of partially chewed leaves against the inside of their cheek. The dried leaves can also be used in this way, though they have less potency. Some khat users also smoke the drug, make it into tea or sprinkle it on food. These leaves will make the users having pleasurable and mildly stimulating effects. Khat is thus classified by World Health Organization as a drug of abuse, as it can produce psychological dependence. It is banned in the UK, US and elsewhere. By contrast, the production, sale and consumption are legal in the nations where its use is traditional of those cultures, including Djibouti, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia and Yemen. Khat is everywhere in Yemen. In the past, Yemenis might indulge once a week, and the practice was largely confined to the northwest mountains, where khat grows. But following unification in 1990, it spread south. Now khat markets bustle all over the country. Chewing khat is a traditional and central part of Yemeni life. Yemeni men traditionally chew khat for several hours starting around midday, stuffing their cheeks with the leaves and letting the narcotic dissolve in their saliva. At these daily khat chewing sessions, Yemenis recline on cushions, listen to traditional music, exchange gossip and engage in debates. Though khat is a nightmare for the coronavirus conscious, most people enjoy it in groups, stuffing their mouths for hours with leaves from shared bags or bundles and spitting and lounging around in close proximity. The pandemic hasn't dulled demand. Khat chewing could manifest itself as moderate degree of euphoria and mild excitement, resulting in promotion of social interaction and causing loquacity. While attaining a state of subjective well-being, the chewers feel an increase of alertness and energy together with enhanced depth of perception. These effects were found to be maximum between 1.5 to 3.5 hours after starting of the khat chewing. But they were progressively replaced by mild dysphoria, sedation, anxiety, reactive depression, insomnia and anorexia. There have been many cases of khat chewers experiencing persistent hallucinations. Khat can also affect sleep, leading to rebound effects such as late awakening, decreased productivity and daytime sleepiness. Most of Yemeni chewed khat because all my friends and family chew. Khat chewing is a way of breaking the monotony of the day and of getting together with friends. Others see khat as the only way to escape from the suffering in life due to war in Yemen. When they chew khat, they forget all the suffering and their mind begin to think about imaginary things. Khat annihilates all suffering and helps Yemeni to live hours of happiness with friends. One said, "When I buy khat, I don't just buy leaves and shoots but happiness, which is the purpose for everyone in life." There is considerable pressure to chew khat, and not chewing brings with it social exclusion. People are willing to do anything to get khat. They will lose their dignity and take bribes to afford the cost of khat. Meanwhile, some families deprive their children of basic food needs such as meat and fruits to be able to buy khat. Up to 50% of household income is thought to be allocated to the daily khat requirement of the head of the household. Khat consumption forces many into a cycle of borrowing and indebtedness. At around $5 for a bag, the amount typically consumed by a single regular user in a day, it's an expensive habit in a country where about 75% of the population lives in poverty. Most families spend more money on khat than on food, according to government figures. While khat takes its toll on Yemeni families, the economy is also affected. Khat chewing causes insomnia that leads to waking up late the next morning, going to work late, and poor work performance. Meanwhile, the time spent chewing khat, about 4 to 5 hours daily, may not be the most productive use of time. Khat is Yemen's top cash crop, its cultivation the main livelihood for most of the 37% of the population working in agriculture, according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Khat has been introduced to Yemen before the Islamic era. Nowadays it is widely cultivated in the mountains of Sana'a and Taiz. Khat is profitable if not for its users. War has forced the closure of many of Yemen's business and factories. Khat is one of the few sources of income. Khat earns 3 times the revenue of any other crop, and it can be harvested as many as 4 times a year. Nearly 60% of the land cultivated for cash crops is devoted to khat growing, crowding out other crops in a country where hunger and malnourishment are widespread. And khat doesn't just push out other more desirable crops, it also sucks in water. About 30% of the country's groundwater goes into khat irrigation. In Yemen's northern provinces, farmers are drilling so many unlicensed wells to irrigate the thirsty trees that engineers sometimes have to drill around 1,500 meters before reaching the water. In Sana'a, a city of some 3 million people, only 45% of households have mains water and the taps are switched on just twice a week. Everyone else relies on privately owned boreholes. Most people in this area depend on the well. But the farmers care neither for the wartime emergency nor the related economic crisis. Instead, they regard khat farming as a legal occupation, keeping users away from drugs which are forbidden in Islam. Khat traders pay a tax on their khat to whichever side controls their region, be it the Houthi rebels or pro-government forces. In Ataq, the capital of Shabwa province, khat contractors pay 5 million Yemeni rials or about $6,300 a day to the local government from taxes paid on every baggie sold. That's a significant windfall in a country where many residents live on less than $2,200 a year. Efforts to eradicate khat have mostly failed. Authorities in South Yemen have banned the sale of the mild narcotic khat on working days, allowing it into the city of Aden, the largest city of southern Yemen, only on weekends. Checkpoints have been set up around Aden to stop khat shipments from entering the port city, as patrols roamed markets to enforce the ban on sales, which will only be permitted on Thursdays and Fridays, the local weekend. This restriction on khat consumption was applied in the formerly independent South Yemen, before it united with the North in the 1990s. Tribesmen also tried to impose a ban on chewing khat in the southeastern port of Mukalla after it was seized by jihadist militants from Al-Qaeda. Khat supporters insist that it isn't addictive, at least, no more than tea or coffee, and that it actually improves productivity by keeping users awake and focused, a sort of herbal alternative to Ritalin. Khat is a problem either way. If you ban it, people will have nothing to do to kill time, and if you lift the ban, you bring back the financial burden on the family. A person can spend anywhere from $5 to $50 on khat for a single session. So, why should the international community send food to Yemen, north and south, when the whole country is walking around with a drug in their mouth? Most of your land is given to growing drugs, not food. It seems that it's an addiction that's being enabled by humanitarian aid. The Yemeni government recently estimated that the khat industry was worth about $12 billion to the country, that happens to be about 3 times the amount that the United Nations says it needs to feed Yemen. It's silly for a nation, which is dangerously short of food, to be growing an inedible narcotic.